What is a game? Is a question that has plagued us gamers for many, many years. Way back when, it was as simple as, are you controlling what's on the screen right now, compared to the non-interaction of standard televisual fare that you would otherwise consume. Then it's a game. But now it's, the goalposts have moved, the definitions have become so nebulous that what is a game is a much more difficult question to answer. There's also the secondary one of, are games art? And I will get to that later. But to me, a game has to have a certain level of interaction. If you're sat there watching hour-long cutscenes and getting to play for 5 minutes every so often, it barely fits the description. Similarly, visual novels don't really feel like a game to me. You're meant to play a game. You're not meant to watch or read a game. And if all you're doing is effectively changing the page like you would in an analog book or e-reader, then is it really a game? I mean, it's in the title, visual novel. They're not even calling itself, a story-led game. But there are exceptions to these that I do think qualify. If there's a particular gimmick or hook, or it goes completely bonkers and off the rails, like with Doki Doki Literature Club, for example, then there is something that makes me go, whilst I don't really feel like it's a game in the normal sense, I do want to give this a go and see what I can get out of it. If it's given to me free, that also helps, and that is the case with today's entry, Nightcall. I got it with Twitch Prime a previous month, and like I say, no real loss to me. Only time, but apparently it wasn't super long or too convoluted, so let's go for it. Because the basic premise is you're a Parisian taxi driver during a period where a serial killer known as the Judge is on the loose, and you are an intended victim. For some unknown reason, they botch your murder attempts and you survive. And you are then, I was going to say asked by the police, but you're demanded by the police that you will in fact help them, or things might go badly for you. Which, if you ever need an incentive to do something, I think that's a pretty good one. And so you then carry on your nightly activities, driving your taxi, filling up your petrol tank when you need to, having a snack, reading the paper. The world is as realised as you want it to be. You can just simply go from taxi job to taxi job and not do anything else. But I think if you fully embrace the idea that you are a taxi driver, so you want your downtime, you want to read the paper, maybe have a listen to the radio, see what's on the news, and then go and pick up a few fares, but you've only got a certain window before you're too tired and you have to go back. Also, if you're too tired when you go home, you can't look at your suspects board properly and, figure out who is the judge, the killer. Now, I played it, like I say, a mix of the detective side and the taxi driver side to make sure that I was getting a good balance. And I've seen people say, like, oh, it was just guesswork in the end and I didn't guess right. It's not. If you pick up the right people and make sure that you've got time to spend at your board, you can do it without guesswork, at least on the easier one where, the motive makes sense and there are connections. When you get into the other kind of game modes, then it's a bit more difficult, there's less to go on. But in the first one, there should be no issue at all. You can figure it out quite easily. But the core of this game, and why I really wanted to talk about it, is the fact that, obviously because of the type of game it is, it's not a shooter or any fighting or anything like that. It is all narrative led. And this leads to some great interactions. There's the funny, completely off the wall things like meeting with Santa who's lost his sleigh, or a group of sort of Power Rangers-esque sort of Sentai show dressed people on a stag night who've lost a member of their team. And, all this kind of stuff. But you've then also got deeper, more human and more emotional stories, such as a girl who hates her mother and wants to run away, and then her mother blames you for the fact that, her daughter wants this freedom, but her daughter wants it anyway. You were just a friendly ear. And you can be really harsh to her and say, look, look after your parents. They brought you into this world, I know you didn't ask for it, but at the end of the day, they're still your parents. Or you can be on a side like, yeah, Sodom. But either way you play it, you still get the mother moaning at you potentially and things like that. And the fact that your actions have consequences is what really makes this a cut above. It isn't just a thing of like, here's option A and option B, spoiler alert, this'll do this, this'll do this. It's not like signposted what your choices will do. There's one particular example that really upset me. And I don't know if it's because I have cats, but there is a cat that I don't know if it's just on night one that it appears, but it did for me. I was like, I'm going to go and look at this. And I made a mistake. There's a question that comes up like, it's basically you're interpreting the cat telling you it needs a ride. And there's a moment that you can say, are you for real? And I thought that was just going to be are you for real? Well, come on then. But no, that was a end of conversation. Cat gets out of taxi. And I was like, oh, okay. Then you get someone looking for their cat. And that's quite sad. Because you're like, oops, that was the cat. And, I could have made sure he was home safe. But then, a few nights after, the real sad comes because you have a veterinary student who is falling behind and has to do some dissections late at night. And they're meant to have dead animals to work on, obviously. But their source wasn't entirely reputable. And the animal wasn't entirely dead. It was, in fact, a live cat who was just heavily sedated. So with a massive wound, it obviously escapes and, you pick her up and at first it sounds like she's trying to find her pet cat. But then you realise that, after a bit of digging, it isn't a pet and she opens up to you. And you're chasing, you're going to this wooded area where you can hear the yowling. And there are choices there. You can be really kind to her and just say, oh, well, these things happen. I wasn't going to do that. Or you can be really, really harsh, and I didn't want to be too harsh, but I wanted to be firm but fair, so I made a sort of balance. But there comes a moment where you remind her that this is an animal that is suffering. That suffering needs to end. You caused it, so you need to end it. This is your responsibility. Or you can do it for her. Now, it's not laid out, it doesn't say outright, this is the cat that you saw a few nights ago that you didn't take home. But I believed it was. And really, I'm telling this girl, it's your responsibility, you go and put it out of its misery. But what if it was mine? Wouldn't that be my responsibility? Shouldn't I have gone and done it? But I didn't know that was going to happen. And that's a really interesting part of this game. You make a lot of choices in the conversations you have, but you never know the outcome. And that is like life. You make all these decisions, moment to moment, day to day. But the outcomes of that, the consequences, might be years in the making. And you need to be aware of what you're doing. With the global sort of situation going on right now, I'm not going to name it and give it any more power, but you all know what's going on right now in the health world, shall we say. And there's a brilliant thing I saw the other day about the idea of reacting versus responding. Reacting is visceral, it's emotional, it's in the moment, and consequences be damned. But responding is going, right, what happens if I do this? What has happened? What can I do to soften the blow, if anything? Is there anything I can do to change the outcome? And then, once you've reasoned it, you then act. So instead of reacting, it's responding. And I think, there are many things in life that try to teach us this, and this wonderful game, this little indie darling, is one of them. Learn how to use your words as your best tool. We can all swing a punch, I guess. Well, we can all do something violent, I suppose. But that doesn't solve things nearly as well as talking about things. Reasoning them out and figuring out the best solution to move forward together. So if that's the one thing, if you're going to take one thing away from Nightcall, I think it is use your words and use them wisely. But that's all I want to say on it. So thank you very much for watching. And as always, until next time, take care.